You're listening to The Pulse on AMI Audio. I'm Grant Hardy. In honor of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, GAAD, the Global Accessibility Awareness Day Foundation and ServiceNow have launched the AI Model Accessibility Checker, or AMAC. This is a new tool that evaluates and compares how well coding focused LLMs, or large language models, generate accessible code. So the upshot is going to be more tools and information to ensure that companies keep up with accessibility in a changing technology landscape. Joe Devon is the co-founder of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and he also serves as the chair of the Global Accessibility Awareness Day Foundation. He joins us on the Pulse. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Great. How are you, Grant? Thank you for
I
having me.
I am excellent and happy to chat with you here today. First of all, could you just recap, tell us about the inspiration behind Global Accessibility Awareness Day and the GAAD Foundation?
So, the inspiration for Global Accessibility Awareness Day was really my father, who, by the way, about 10 days ago would have been turned 100 years old. So it's quite a momentous year as far as I'm concerned. My father was in his mid 80s when GAD started, and he had started to lose his hearing and his eyesight and was struggling to do online banking. And it was really difficult for me to watch because I had been a web developer at the time for American Idol. And I really thought that the web was the solution for these kind of issues where you are struggling. It's all data, all the data is in front of you. There are screen readers, and if you are designing things with accessibility in mind, then people like my father will not get locked out of their ability to bank, which it just sort of felt like a civil right. I knew nothing about civil rights or disability rights or any of that back then, but correctly intuited that this was something that you could not block people for. But I just wrote a blog post saying that we needed for builders, for people who were creating websites and developers, to create a day of awareness so that we understand accessibility and make sure that we build toward it. And I wrote this blog post. While I was writing it, I thought, this could be a success if I work really hard, trying to outreach. And then I hit send, and then I thought, nothing's going to come of this. I have all these ideas, these grand plans, like everybody. But, no way. And to my utter shock, Jennison Asuncion, my co-founder, reads this post on social media, and he says, "This is a great idea. Let's make it happen." We get on the horn, and we launch it the first year. It goes into 16 cities around the world. It makes the Newswire in Canada, and since I was and my hometown paper in Montreal, because I am Canadian, and then within a few years, this thing hits 220 million social media reach. And we're like, what is going on here? And by the third year, the bank that inspired the event by being inaccessible, they didn't know. I never mentioned their name publicly. They said, we know that our accessibility is problematic, so we are celebrating GAD internally. Please don't tell anybody, but we're going to improve our accessibility. So it
great.
all came first full circle within 3 years. And so anybody that says that people don't care about it, that it doesn't reach a large audience, then explain to me how GAD is a viral event every year. And there was no money behind it. We only started the foundation after 10 years and a lot of questions about where's the foundation.
It's great. And those are the big wins, is when those people or businesses are like, you know what? We could do better for accessibility. Let's just, take some time, focus in on it. Yeah. Tell me about the foundation.
So the foundation, we started it 10 years in. A big part of it was that everybody was saying that this should not just be a day. It's something that we should focus on every day. I always thought that, it's good to have a day where everybody's laser focused. That's just sort of a way to bring attention around an issue. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to work on it on a regular basis. And, we really thought about, well, what is it that is missing out there? And we cottoned on to a mission, which is to change the culture of digital product development to include accessibility as a core value. And the
Mhm.
reason that culture is so important here is I always like to use this example when you're designing a chat interface, you need to have an indicator if the person is online or offline. And if you, as a designer, decide to pick red and green as your buttons, to somebody that's colorblind, that's gray and gray
Mhm.
in most cases. And
Mhm.
that's fine as long as you have a little textual indicator or some other way that you can tell that it's online or offline. And if you're using color alone to convey information, you're locking out millions of colorblind users. To me, that is an issue of craft. That is not an issue of budget. That's not something that you need to go to the CFO and say, "Oh, I need budget to be good at my craft." As a
Mhm.
designer, everybody you show that to should be like, "Oh, well, this is a junior designer because they don't know this," right? And that's a cultural issue. And if you can get it in the water in the culture, yes, you still need to do user testing with people with disabilities. All these other aspects are there, but if everybody feels that this is part of what they build, part of the knowledge base that they're supposed to know, then we're going to find that there's going to be more budget in a lot more places. But at least when there isn't budget, we're going to have a much higher quality experience because everybody is going to feel proud of what they're building or not if they are ignorant of it.
It's those little things that are just as infuriating as the big things. Definitely having a chat that's totally inaccessible is almost not a lot better than having a chat where you have to exit out of the input for a blind user, maybe go check somewhere else totally differently to see if someone's typing, or not even be able to check that at all.
Yeah.
Really impacts that user experience. Now, one of the things that you've stated here is that accessibility cannot be retrofitted, or should not be retrofitted. It should be built in from the ground up if possible. What difference in kind of user experience do you find between sort of retrofitting accessibility after the fact versus building it in the start?
I mean, there's just a difference in the organization when you're thinking about it up front. I mean, just even if you include something as simple as that design, that design thing there, if you find out that one of your clients, for example, is Meta, and you really care about them as your client, and then you find out that Mark Zuckerberg is colorblind, right? And you design with those little buttons only, you're going to have to retrofit your entire application, and then things are just not going to fit the same way, right?
Mhm.
So you might come in and fix that, right? And I only mentioned that situation because I believe that he is colorblind, right? And it's just an example, right? Because a lot of people
Mhm.
don't
Mhm.
realize how many people are impacted by these different disabilities. There's a ton of very well known people, including in tech, that are colorblind. Um, anyway, I digressed a little bit, right? The point I was getting at is
That's a good example.
if you're starting out and you're not paying attention to this from the outset, then you're winding up with a hampered product, and you've got technical debt to begin with. And if you could tell that you're not prioritizing it, you're building in technical debt, you're building in
Mhm.
inferior quality. It's like saying, I'm building a car. um, does it really matter? Why don't I not design the seat belts to begin with? But if people die,
Mhm.
then okay, I'm going to figure
Yeah.
out how to retrofit those seat belts after the fact. Or like there was a building in New York, a famous building that essentially, for all kind of reasons, they didn't have like these sustaining walls, so that it's sort of like, The center is what holds up the whole building, and it just looks completely like this thing will fall down in a storm. And the designer, after he came out with it, within a year, he realized that there is like a 99 or 100% chance the building is going to go down within
Jeez.
100 years. And unlike some others, was honest enough to admit his design was bad, and they still fixed it, right?
Yeah.
But how disastrous that you have to fix it afterward.
It's definitely a very different philosophy that creates a totally different approach depending on
Yeah.
how you work in that design. So let's talk about the web. Everything is web based, it seems, today, or has some sort of web component to it. What's your thoughts? I know there's been a report on web accessibility recently that was referenced, that you've referenced, but how do you find web accessibility in general? Like, where do you think we're standing right now?
I don't think we're standing very good. The WebAIM report has consistently said that we're around for like 5 years. We're around 96% inaccessible for the top million web pages. And I think the purpose of the report is to show you trends so that you see, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Why is it getting better? Why is it getting worse? It just stays the same.
Mhm.
And maybe a million is too many to impact, but my gut feeling is technology is just so hard to create. We've made it overly complex, and as a result of the extreme complexity, we're winding up with a web that is just not very accessible. And I think it has to change, and I think it's going to change.
So, what do they call them? Content management systems that a lot of people use to sort of develop a website have been popular. But now we're entering an era where people are coding with AI, or AI is going to play a prominent role in designing websites. Am I correct about this? And would you say this is a watershed moment in terms of accessibility for disabled users?
Absolutely, and it can go either way.
Mhm.
But I personally am vibe coding almost every free moment of the day and night. I'm completely obsessed by it. As a former programmer who's been away from programming for 10, 15 years, now I have the ability to code again using AI. I don't write much of the code. I'm mostly just telling the AI what to do, keeping it from making disasters. And it's sort of like you've got these dogs that are extremely powerful and they're pulling you in a certain direction, and you have to figure out ways to hold it back from just going in every direction. And it's been an adventure for 4 months or so, but I finally gotten a pretty good handle on how to wrangle it and keep it from making these massive mistakes. It's fascinating. I could probably talk to you for a half an hour about it, but bore everybody by going into too much detail.
Well, I tell you what, I'm very fascinated by it. A little off topic, but do you mind telling me where the term vibe coding came from?
Yes, there's a famous AI scientist called Andrej Karpathy. He's at Carpathia on social media. He was the lead for Tesla for the AI, the self driving at
Mhm.
Tesla, and then he was the co-founder. I believe his title was co-founder. He's certainly like one of the top scientists at OpenAI. And he does a lot of teaching. If you want to learn about AI, he really makes it easy for the end user to understand it. So you should definitely look at his videos. And he just said, that he was going in, and there's a tool called Cursor, which is the number one in this space. That you could talk to the AI and have it write some code for you, and then you go in and fix it and take a look at it. And a lot of hardcore great programmers like Karpathy will have a lot of pride around the code they're writing, but AI will write code so quickly for you. And
Mm,
there's just certain tasks where you're not necessarily going to open source it, where you're just trying to achieve something small. Like, let's say I vibe coded. I had like a silent video of 3 minutes, and that was particularly interesting for a couple of friends of mine who are blind. So here
mhm.
I'm trying to send them a video with no sound, right? So I'm like, okay, I need an audio description track for this. So I vibe coded, not a fully automated solution, but semi-automated solution where I sent the video to an AI model, had it analyze each frame, and then turn that into an audio description script. And then I had to, as a human, go in and then edit that script a little bit to make it perfect. And then sent the script to another AI model that used a synthesized human voice to dub over the script. But there's all these tools which would have taken days, and I would have never started this project. It took me an hour to turn this video, the silent video, into an audio described video that was really well done. And it was vibe code. I never need, nobody's going to look at that code. There's no security issue. It's all on my computer. So that's the kind of thing that you can vibe code. You're never looking at that code. It's all AI. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you tell the AI it didn't work. Here's the error, fix it. Right. And you just go through this loop where the AI does all the fixes. So that's exactly what Karpathy described, that he's doing these
Mm.
projects where he's not even looking at the code. He's just letting it all go and letting the go with the vibes. And then the AI will come in and just fix it and do it. And I'm not even touching it. I don't care about the code quality, whatever it be, it be.
That's great. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
That we're getting to that era where AI will describe videos, describe images, and that you can just whip something like that up together so that it takes care of all the automation stuff so you don't have to worry about any of that. Man, I, like you, I'm fascinated by this. I could spend hours asking more questions along these lines and would definitely love to chat with you more about that in the future. But I do want to get to the exciting announcement here that you've launched as of May 15th, which is the AI Model Accessibility Checker, or AMAC, which I guess kind of centers around the perspective that AI could do great things, but does AI always write accessible code? Maybe not. So what is this tool? What's it going to do?
Yeah. So essentially, this is a benchmark. And it took me a while to even understand this. I'm like trying to keep up with the hardcore AI researchers. And I kept seeing them talk about evals and benchmarks and how important they are. And I'm starting to look into it deeper. And I'm like, but I don't totally get it. But I know that we need one for accessibility. I contacted the top, researchers to say, hey, will you? I was trying to get them like to see it as a public good and maybe donate their time, and that didn't work very well. They're not cheap at all,
Mhm, mhm,
and they have no lack of work.
mhm.
So I was like, okay, I don't think it'll be possible to hire the crack team to build something like this. Um, but I just kept talking to people about it. I couldn't get anybody interested. And then finally I vibe coded. I was like, yeah, what do I have to lose? The AI knows about all this AI stuff. So I vibe coded a proof of concept where I did a little eval of how accessible the different models are. And then my collaborator, my co-host, I have a podcast on AI and accessibility, Eamon Mackerlane, who heads up accessibility for ServiceNow for global. Um, I showed him the POC and he said, oh my God, we absolutely have to do this. And so then he backed it, partnered with me. And the funniest thing about this is the final release is the fourth version. And I do
Mhm.
consider this to be a beginning. We're just trying to get it out to the community. And get feedback on it because it's not perfect at all. It's just the early stage to see, hey, how accessible are different LLMs at writing HTML? And the most interesting part is that the first POC was very complex that tested so many different elements of AI. The second version was a disaster because AI went in the wrong direction. That cost me a month of figuring out how to wrangle the vibe coding. The
Mm.
third version was extremely complex again. And then I was like, if I put this in front of one of the people building the models, they're not going to care about it. So as I did more and more research, I noticed that in the best benchmarks had a front end that was extremely basic, and all it did was it gave a score to an LLM, an AI model, and said, "This is how good you are." So what we did was we simplified it so that it's a leaderboard that just says which model is the best. And so, funnily enough, after all of this work, it all boils down to that simple leaderboard. And then the future versions are going to go into into a lot more detail. But the funny thing is that the way we're doing it is we're asking the LLMs to generate HTML, and then we're running it against the Axe Core project, which is an open source project that determines anything that you can detect in an automated fashion, which DQ, who is behind Axe Core, says it's 57% of issues are now detectable with this Axe Core. If it's automated, you can, then hey, this issue is something that you should be able to fix. The AI models, once they look at this, it will be extremely easy for all of them to have almost perfect scores because we're breaking down for them how to set up the system so that they can generate an unlimited amount of data and see for themselves where they're going wrong. So it's just about a mindset and a mind frame and getting them to look at things in this way. And we've already had certain folks inside the big tech organizations look at this and say that they're going to put in front of their AI people. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one because when I first heard about this, I was thinking more benefits to the end user, like people using more accessible code. And that's definitely true. But I think a lot of the benefits will actually be for the AI creators, yes, because otherwise you could get into a situation where like code that has to be accessible by law is not being created accessibly with your whatever AI product is, you being some developer of an LLM, which
Yeah.
would mean their code maybe wouldn't be used. Is that correct that a lot of the benefits will be for the AI
Yeah, I
developers?
mean that's really a great point. In order for them to be compliant, they really should be making their code accessible, and this will protect them. It'll make it a lot easier. But the idea at the end of the day is to get them to compete with each other on how accessible they are. And one of the reasons it's so important is the CEO, the co-founder of Cursor, who I mentioned earlier, was uh, um, the biggest platform out there, software. He wrote out that there's 1 billion lines of code today written every single day with Cursor's AI. So where they
Mm-hmm.
accept the Cursor's code that they generated, right? Out of several, 3 billion lines of code per day. So in other words, we're already at a quarter of all code is being written by Cursor. And there are other platforms like Cursor. So we're probably at 50%, and we're very early in this process. That means within a year, what you're going to see is that there's going to be an exponential growth in the number of applications and the amount of code being written. And that's why this benchmark is so important, because if we can get them to pay attention to accessibility and the code that they generate, then the quality of code is going to go up instead of down. That's really my hope. That's my passion. And that's my goal for the coming, couple of years.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be more important than ever to build accessible code from the scratch instead of go back and try and add that in later with that many lines of code. What are you hoping to hear in terms of feedback or just evolve the project moving forward?
I already have a ton of people that have offered to get involved, and I've pushed them away until after GAD because it would have taken up more time. But I've had researchers, professors, big tech companies offer resources of all kinds. So there's going to be a whole team of people working on this, which is really exciting. And I want to take it up to a whole new notch because we definitely need a lot more expertise from people that have been working deep in the trenches. I've been an executive for most of the last uh, 10, 15 years. So I'm kind of like a rusty old veteran coming back in, like one of those Robert Redford baseball movies. Coming in, just doing some coding. It's fun. It's great, but we definitely need some young blood in here.
And your code is available publicly, I believe, on GitHub. So someone who does want to collaborate or take a look, they can just go online and do that.
Yes, github.com/GAD dash foundation / AMAC, AIMAC. Um,
And so, just to sum up here, and this is really exciting that you're doing this and getting people to pay attention as well. That's going to be fantastic. And I'm just curious, we have so many ways that AI is making things accessible, like AI generated image descriptions, etc. And then we have maybe some things we're still working on, like making sure AI generated code is accessible. Are you optimistic about the future of web accessibility getting better?
I'm cautiously optimistic, but we have to work on it. It's not going to happen by itself. As I learned from GAD, if you go in and you have vision and you build something and you have a community behind it, you will achieve great things. But it's not going to happen on its own. If we don't put their feet to the fire, nobody will pay attention.
Where can people learn more about the Global Accessibility Awareness Day Foundation, your work, and maybe keep up with this project and some of the other things you're working on?
Sure. So if you go to at Joe Devon on all platforms, that is my handle. The foundation itself is GAAD.foundation, FOUNDATION. And I'm on LinkedIn at Joe Devon is definitely a good place to reach me. And if you just Google for our podcast, it is accessibility and Gen AI.
So much more I'd love to chat about, but we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us on The Pulse.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed meeting with you again.
And you take care. Thanks so much to Joe Devon, the chair of the Global Accessibility Awareness Day, GAAD Foundation, for joining us on The Pulse. The Pulse airs on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio and repeats every 6 hours. You can also catch the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Grant Hardy. Thanks so much for listening.